Good morning, everybody, or I guess depending what time zone you are, good afternoon. It's 11 o'clock here in Montana. Thanks for joining us for our second onX office hours session here. If you haven't been into one of these office hours type classes before, it's a little bit more of just a open forum question and answer session. No real agenda like some of our classes, so it's really dictated by the questions folks sent in beforehand at registration, and then the questions that people type into the Q&A box down below. A couple of housekeeping things before we really get into it. This class is being recorded, so if you have to drop off or you want to revisit it later, it'll be up on our YouTube channel either this afternoon or tomorrow sometime, depending on how fast we're able to get everything uploaded. You are muted, your video is turned off, so we can't see you, we can't hear you. If you have stuff going on in the background, no worries about that. If you do have questions you'd like us to answer, please use the Q&A box down below. The chat feature is just a little bit difficult for us to kind of keep track of and to follow along with. The Q&A is much easier, so that's where we'll pull questions from. We probably won't be able to get to every question today. We're going to be on for about an hour, but we'll do our best to answer as many as we can. And finally, we are doing a giveaway at the end of the class. We're giving away some onX Hunt t-shirts. We'll post that link in the chat towards the end, so you get entered to win some free onX swag there. My name's Jack. I work in the onX Hunt marketing department. I've been with the company for about 5 years, have a few years experience in customer support, as well as a little bit on our GIS team and marketing. So got a little bit of knowledge when it comes to some different aspects of the app. To my left is Jeff.
Jeff, yeah, I am a product manager for the Hunt team. I define new features and work with our engineering organization to get those things built and into all of your hands through our apps and on the web.
Awesome. Let's get in. We'll start out with some of the questions that were sent in at registration. This first one kind of made me laugh. Said, "Why are you on Zoom and not out hunting?" And I put that one in here because I want to take the opportunity to brag because I killed an elk on Saturday. So I filled my elk tag.
Yeah, good for you.
Killed a cow elk with my bow, so my freezer is at capacity. So
cool.
But also it's, middle of the day, somebody's got to do some work to keep improving the app and all that stuff. So
I got told by a friend of mine once that if you want to hunt more, you should not work for a company that is focused on hunting. And he happened to own an archery shop and said it was the worst thing ever because now he never got to go hunting because everybody else was in 2 days before season wanting peep sights tied in or whatever else. So that was good advice that I obviously didn't listen to. So
we're still pretty lucky. We're able to get out a fair bit.
We are actually.
All right, second question. Why don't I see property lines in Illinois in the area I hunt? I put this one in here because there's a few states, including Illinois. I think there's still 3 counties where we don't have the property owner information from the county. The Dakotas have some, especially South Dakota along the Missouri River. I think there's still a few in the UP of Michigan. Colorado has a few. There's one in Washington, a few in New Mexico. Every year, it seems like we're able to add a few counties, but what's happening there is the county doesn't have a digital parcel data set that we're able to use and bring into the app. So it's not like we're just picking on a county and saying, nah, we don't care about the hunters there. Doesn't benefit us at all to not have that information. It's just a matter of that information not being digitally available to us. So I know in Illinois, I think there's a couple. I think they're all along the Mississippi, if I remember correctly. We do have a coverage map on our website. You can kind of search for onX Maps parcel coverage, should pull up there, and you can do a double check there. So like I said, Illinois, some in the Dakotas, it's mostly more rural areas, where they may not have the funding to digitize it or don't have the bandwidth, the folks to do it.
It does bring up the bigger question too. We get a ton of questions all the time about how often is our property data updated, and we do source that data from the counties, and so we are doing our best to update it as often as they update it. And I know in some cases you'll see discrepancies, but we are trying to build some automated processes that'll let us pull that data in and display it in near real time. But there's always going to be a lag between properties changing hands, the county getting all of the digital data updated, and then us being able to get that data and get it into the app. So that will be the main reason why you would see property ownership that's out of date. So we get that question a lot. Just thought that might be helpful. So I don't know if that was on your list, but
no, I'm just marking off the ones that we've answered here,
okay,
so I don't go over them again. Had a question about weather. Why can't you give us live weather, like live radar, up-to-date forecast offline? And the person said pinging off the satellite. It's more of a hardware issue on your phone, and correct me if I'm wrong. That weather data comes to us. We've got to be able to connect via the internet to be able to pull that weather data down. Your phone, we can't really like connect to the weather satellites. Your phone connects to satellites in the GPS, to those satellites, where that's how it shows your location when you're offline. So that's where some of the confusion comes, how we're able to do some things offline and not other. Your phone, your GPS receiver in your phone works, similar to how a handheld standalone GPS does. And those satellites, it shows your location. But those are different than like weather satellites or communication satellites or, other types of satellites. So that's why we're not able to show live weather updates when you're offline. Technology is always changing. And honestly, I think what'll probably happen first is we're probably going to have internet coverage most places at some point in the, maybe it's years away still, but I would say for sure in our lifetimes, which is good and bad.
Yeah. And we've talked about how we might do this. If your phone is offline and it has no connection to a network, then there's really no way to get additional information into really any app on your phone. If you have like a Zoleo or an InReach or one of those type of devices, and you ask it to fetch the weather for you, all it's doing is sending that request through satellite, the same as a signal would go through your regular wireless provider. And they're querying the same sorts of weather services, whether it's WeatherBug or Weather Underground or whoever they use to obtain a weather forecast, and they're just sending that back to you. And it's possible we would implement something similar to that. But if we did, it would require you to have one of those devices. And so if you already have one of those devices, you can already get the weather. So we've struggled to see how we would provide any sort of extra benefit to customers through building that, but it's not off our radar. It's just not really high right now.
We got a couple of questions that all kind of pertain to waypoints. So I'm going to share my map here on my tablet so we can run through a couple of these. Give me one moment to pull that up. All right, there's a little bit of lag there. So the first question was, when I'm out scouting and I find a whole lot of sign, how do I, make it so that I can find that sign again so I can get back there? What I do is I mark a waypoint on all of that sign that I want to see. So let's just pretend I'm out scouting out here in the Bitterroot Wilderness here. I've never actually been to that spot, but just for demonstration purposes. So I'm out here, I'm scouting around. Let's say I'm walking this trail and I find a bunch of elk rubs. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go into my tools. And if I were actually standing right where that rub is, I would hit the button kind of top middle that says mark my location. That's going to place a waypoint right where you're standing. Obviously, if I do it right now, it's going to put me at the onX offices. So for right now, for the demonstration purposes, I'm going to hit the button that says add waypoint. That's going to place a waypoint on my map. I can tap the screen. All I'm doing is just tapping the map here, and you can see the waypoints moving around. So let's say I found some elk rubs right there, and I want to be able to find this spot again. I'm going to name that waypoint elk rubs. Always recommend you name a waypoint so that you know at a glance what it is. I'm going to go into these waypoint icons we have. and I'm going to scroll down and I'm going to hit the rub icon. Then I'm going to scroll down and I'm going to change the color of my waypoint. Personally, what I do with my waypoints is I do the color based on the species that I'm hunting. So I can easily tell my deer spots from my elk spots, from turkey, bear, whatever. Some people will do it based on year, and they'll say, all right, 2023, they're all going to be yellow, for example. And then I can tell, all right, my 2022 ones were blue, my 2021 ones were black, and so on, so that you can kind of see that over time. Whatever works for you, whatever makes the most sense. Some people will say, man, I only hunt elk, and I'm going to make rubs and wallows one color. I'm going to make droppings a color. I'm going to make sightings a different color. You know, whatever makes sense to you. I'd say the only wrong way to do it is to do nothing.
Yeah.
If you just leave them all the same color, all the same icon, once you start adding waypoints, they're going to get pretty confusing.
It's a bit of an aside, but I think that's a really good point that Jack made. Different people's brains work differently, and you're gonna think about the organization of your stuff differently. I use like the turquoise color if I'm marking places ahead of time where I think I may want to check something out, or something looks interesting and I may want to come back or actually put boots on the ground and go find that spot. And then if I see there when I get there that yes, I did confirm that that's a good, I don't know, whatever, bedding area, or this field might hold pheasants or whatever it is, then I'll change the color at that point. If I don't find the thing that I'm looking at, I'll either delete the waypoint or I change it black. And black to me says nothing was there. And I have some other little weird rules too. Like if I mark a route, if that's a route I'm going to drive, I color it white because I happen to have a white truck. If I'm going to walk that route, I color it brown because I have brown boots, like for no other reason than that.
Yeah.
And so just different people have different ways of how their brain processes all this stuff. I organize things in folders, not by years or by species. So I'm gonna put my waypoints in folders for specific hunts. But anyway, your brain is going to work a specific way. And what we've tried to do is build into the app the flexibility for you to be able to organize the way that works best in your head. And we get a lot of questions about how should I organize my waypoints, or, you know, what should I use folders for? And what we've tried to do is build it in a way that's flexible enough so that it'll match whatever style you want to try to adopt. And, you know, the sky's the limit. However you work best with it, you just pick a way. Like Zach says, name them, or, you know, Jack says, name them, make sure you pick a color, add notes if you need to, which is what he just did in this one. Like you can change the style of the waypoint if you want. So he picked something very specific. So just pick your style, and then it'll be second nature to you. When you look at your map, you'll just be able to know what's there by just seeing what you see.
Yeah, I've been doing it for a couple of years now, and I see a brown waypoint, you know, on my personal account. Brown is elk, because they're brown. I started out with blue for bears, thought alliteration, and then it ended because there weren't any other ones that made sense. I guess turquoise turkeys kind of works. But I kind of know at a glance, all right, those are bear icons, those are turkey ones. And then I group them all into folders by species. So right now I'm not bear or turkey hunting because I hunt those in the spring in Montana. I have those all turned off. You know, so that I'm only seeing, I've been doing a lot of grouse hunting lately. I have my upland ones turned on right now, and some of my deer stuff. So you can turn those folders on and off. We may get into that a little bit later. But I want to touch on one more thing. We had this question: what do you consider to be the most useful tool or tools in the app that you see most hunters not taking advantage of? So waypoints is certainly one of them. I have almost 1,500 waypoints, I think, on my map now.
3,000, I think.
You have 3,000?
So yeah.
So mark stuff. I think it's Dan Staten from Elk Shape says waypoints are free.
Yep.
It's kind of like fishing, hook sets are free. Mark waypoints. You know, and sometimes I go back through and I delete stuff. I'm like, man, I'm not going back to this area, or this is no longer applicable, whatever. It's not like you're charged per waypoint or anything like that. So mark stuff. You know, I mark sometimes it'd be every rub I saw, or every, you know, instance of bear scat I found on a bear hunt, things like that. So marking waypoints and not being afraid to mark waypoints and putting that work in can kind of help. But another aspect of waypoints that I think a lot of people don't know about are some of our waypoint tools, specifically the wind on a waypoint. So I'm just going to use this same waypoint here for demonstration purposes. I've got my elk rub waypoint. I'm going to tap on it. And you see if I scroll down in the menu, I have two tools there. The one I want to talk about specifically is the wind direction waypoint. So what that's going to do is it's going to use the available weather data for that location to show you what the wind is doing at any given moment. And there's two different ways you can use this. The first one is to just show the current wind. That's what's selected by default. So if I apply that and scroll back down, I can see there's a 9-mile-an-hour east wind. We always get the question, that is wind blowing from the east to the west. Okay, you can see the arrow on there showing you what direction that wind is blowing. That's one way you can use it. If you just want to know what the wind is doing at a spot, great. If you are only going to hunt an area on a certain wind, so think tree stand hunters, duck hunters in duck blinds, things like that. If you say, man, I really only want to hunt this on a north wind, I'm going to select north, northwest, northeast, and I'm going to apply that. And then my waypoint is going to be kind of color coded, where you can see it's yellow right now because it's an east wind, meaning it's not north, northwest, northeast. It's not a great wind for me, but it's okay. If the wind was blowing out of the north, that would be highlighted green. If it was blowing out of the south, it would be highlighted red, because that's the exact opposite. Like that's the worst one I could have, right? And what else is cool with this is the wind calendar. So if I go into my tools and select wind calendar, I can see all of my waypoints that I've selected a wind for, or a wind direction. And it'll tell me, kind of forecast it out, what, let's say I want to go hunting Saturday and I'm trying to pick a spot. It'll tell me, hey, these spots have good winds at this time. These spots have forecasted bad winds at another time. So you could put, let's say you have 10 tree stands. You're kind of trying to decide, where am I going to hunt? And you're going to hunt Saturday morning. I have Saturday the 23rd selected here. I'm going to hunt Saturday morning. All right, at sunrise, what's got the best wind? And man, there's 3 of them that are green. Everything else is red or yellow. Now that maybe helps just make that decision a little bit easier. I can get that kind of paralysis by analysis, like a lot of people. If you just kind of use that as one of your decision-making tools to say, and wind's going to be awful everywhere else, these are my 3 stands. Then you go to, all right, what stand do I want to hunt for, whatever reason it might be, time of year or crops being taken out or something like that.
Mm-hmm. One other thing kind of related to this whole same topic of wind is another use for this. We get questions a lot about, how can I get into my stand that I've marked without spooking anything that may be around? And so there's a couple, there's some obvious things that are not onX things, but, obviously finding a route that'll help you ingress quietly without, running into deadfall and all kinds of other stuff. But also you can use this current wind setting. If you find a route, or you have 2 or 3 different routes to a stand that you can get to, drop a couple waypoints along that route and set current wind. And when you get to wherever you're parking, or when you get ready to walk in, you can have a really quick, easy visual way to just look at your map and look at those routes and see what the wind might be doing along those routes, so that then you can get to your stand theoretically then without having the wind at least disturb your path in. If you're going to run a headlamp and shine your light all over the woods, that's a different story. But like, at least it'll give you that information. And then, as Jack said, you mark on your tree stand, or tree stands plural, you mark this optimum wind. Now you'll be able to see the best wind to go for the best stand. So a couple other little things there.
And one other waypoint question I want to cover here while we've got the app pulled up: how to manually enter a waypoint with only having the coordinates. So let's say a buddy maybe texts you coordinates, lat long coordinates, or you pull them off something else. How can I find that on the map and mark a waypoint? So in the top right corner, there's a search button. I'm going to tap that, and then I'm going to search by location. So I'm just going to type in, just a generic coordinate. When you're entering decimal coordinates in North America, the second one has to be negative. Otherwise, it's going to put you on the other side of the prime meridian, and you're going to be in, Asia or Europe somewhere.
By the way, the easiest way to do this is to copy and paste.
Yeah.
Like obviously, like you don't want to be typing in all these numbers. If you get one of those wrong, you're gonna, one digit transposed, you're gonna be in the wrong place. But
yeah,
if you can copy and paste, obviously that's preferred. But yeah, so
I just typed those in, I just did a generic. I know this is going to put me in the Dakotas somewhere. So it drops that little gray, looks kind of like a waypoint, drops that icon. What I can do is I can just tap that add waypoint button on the bottom on my menu. And then, like I said, I recommend naming stuff. This one's just going to get named a test. 21. I'm just going to leave it at that for now. But now, once I close out, once I get rid of this, now I have my waypoint there. So that's, like we said, copy and paste. You can do this on your computer as well. If you have them pulled up from another site or something, you can do that on the onX web map on our website. That's probably where I do it more often versus on mobile. But that's how, let's see, where did this put us? Oh, I've been not too far from that spot in South Dakota, right along the Missouri River there. So that's how you're able to manually enter those coordinates and place a waypoint there. Let's get to we're about halfway through here. Let's get to some live questions. I'm going to stop sharing. Here we are. Let's see. Number one thing you look for when e-scouting Southern California mule deer. I've never hunted Southern California mule deer. I don't know if you have.
Nope.
So I'm not going to be able to give you a ton of firsthand experience. I would expect Southern California is some of that more desert country. Would think water would be very important. If you use onX, go to your topo map or your hybrid map, and that's going to help you more easily see the waterways, like the streams and stuff. Now, they may be some of those like seasonal streams, may or may not have water in them. But that would be, without ever having done it, that would be where I would start of, hey, I'm going to probably need to be by water at some point. Deer need water, I think, just about every day. They can get some from the vegetation, but if there's a cattle tank or a flowing stream, I would expect that they would take advantage of that.
Yeah, and again, back to marking waypoints. If I'm e-scouting ahead of time, all my water waypoints, I just make them blue. Just because water's blue, kind of. And so I will mark water sources like that in blue. The other thing you might want to think about, especially if it's an area that can be glassed, rather than, obviously letting your eyes do the walking is much faster and easier. If it is a glassing area, use the 3D function inside onX. A lot of times what I'll do is on the topo map, I will look for areas that would appear to give good views of, say, a north-facing slope or someplace, like if it's warm during the day, where a critter may bed down. And I will look for, in 3D mode, ways to get to that spot to be able to glass likely looking either bedding areas or, say, early in the morning or late in the evening, feeding areas for those bucks. And the 3D tool is a great way to identify those spots. And then again, back to waypoints. I mark all my glassing waypoints in yellow. I don't know why, I just do. And so I will mark those high spots with a yellow waypoint, and we actually have a glassing waypoint type that you can select. And a lot of times I will often draw lines I use a dashed line from that waypoint to the area that I found on the map that is the main area that I want to glass, at least as a starting point. And I'll obviously adjust that when I get in the field. But if I'm e-scouting ahead of time, that's how I mark all my spots.
That's good stuff. Jesse asks, what do you look for to hunt in areas that do not have elevation change? For example, Louisiana. This is what I grew up hunting in northern Minnesota. So it may sound weird to kind of compare northern Minnesota and Louisiana, but it's flat, kind of thick, oftentimes swampy country. And it does make things a little bit difficult. If you're hunting areas with a lot of elevation changes, you can kind of find those ridge lines deer like to walk along, or some of those saddles and things like that. I would say, especially didn't specify here what you're hunting. I assume deer. Look for any kind of variation in vegetation. And I'll use this as an opportunity to plug our trees, crops, and cover folder. So if you go into your map and pull up the trees, crops, and cover, why don't I actually just demo this?
It's under layers.
So let me pull up the map here. 1 second while that pulls up again. So if I go into, I'm just going to bring the map back here, go into my map layers and scroll down to trees, crops, and cover. What I would do in a place that's really flat is I'm going to turn on my wetlands layer. So that's going to show me where there might be water. And again, that might be an elevation change of only a couple feet. But in those real flat areas, that's going to make a difference from dry ground to wet ground. I'm also going to turn on my coniferous and deciduous tree distribution. So if we start there, I'm just going to move down to Louisiana. I don't have anything turned on for Louisiana right now besides those 3 layers I just turned on. I don't have property boundaries or anything. But now I can begin to see a little bit of change, right? I can kind of see these bands of trees. If I tap on it, it tells me that's oak, gum, cypress. If I tap on this red area up here, it's going to tell me that's oak hickory. So again, I have never hunted Louisiana. I've never been there. I'd love to sometime. But deer are creatures of the edge. So where where different habitats or different vegetation types come together, they're more likely to be there on kind of maybe the edge of 2 different tree stand types. Maybe it's a pine plantation that borders some more deciduous stuff, or along the edges of swamps. That's what we've done in northern Minnesota. It's a different swamp than Louisiana, certainly. But we found, especially once pressure kind of hits, those deep, dark swamps is where animals go to kind of avoid that pressure during gun season. And you can kind of hunt along those edges, find an edge where we've got a lot of balsam and pine up there, where that borders up to some aspens or maybe some maples or other type of deciduous trees is another effective tool. So that's maybe where I would start. I learned a lot from the Hunting Public guys. They always talk about looking for different colors on the map when they're using aerial imagery of just different vegetation types.
Yeah,
anything?
Sounds good.
Awesome. I had a question on how accurate are property boundaries in Northeast Tennessee. Brian asked that. We'll answer that for the whole country. Your property boundaries are basically going to be as accurate as what the county provides us with. So in a past life, I worked in onX acquiring that property boundary data and, working with the counties to bring it in and stuff. And they usually gave us a disclaimer that, hey, with GIS technology and things like that, I think the standard was they'd tell us it could be like 50 to 100 feet off, because I think they were really just trying to cover. Usually we find them to be 5 to 10 feet is kind of our standard discrepancy in property boundaries. I haven't seen it be much more than that in my experience. So there is going to be, it's not going to be survey grade. So if you're trying to use this in like a boundary dispute over a neighbor's fence or something, you're going to have to get a survey taken. what onX does is it helps get you close. And then once you're there, use some of your context clues of, oh, there's a barbed wire fence here, but my app shows me I can go 2 feet further. I probably wouldn't cross that fence, something like that. If it's hundreds of yards away from a property boundary, that's a different thing. But that's generally what we find is 5 to 10 feet. If you do see something that appears to be way off, that does happen. We do have a property boundary like error report. So I'll show you what that looks like here. My tablet here is taking some time. But if I tap on a property, this is just a random one outside of Missoula. Along the bottom here, I don't know if you can see that on Zoom, it might get cut off. But if you try this on your phone or on your computer, you can tap report an error. And then, select what kind of land is it? Is it an issue with private land, government land, something else? What's wrong? And you can select multiple of these. If it's a boundary line and a name is wrong, if it's just the boundary line is wrong, you can hit next. And then the more information you can give us to our mapping team, instead of just saying, hey, this line's off, let us know, hey, it looks like it's shifted, 20 yards to the east, or it's something like that. That helps us then go back to our data source, to the county, and look at what might be wrong there, whether they have it wrong on their end, or if something in the processing process got, kicked it off or something. Then we'll work to verify the correct boundaries and get them corrected and updated in the app. Let's see. You ever have intentions to make it easier to put your tracks and waypoints into a folder per season? My maps got bogged down after a few years of hunting the same spot. I wish I could add things to a folder per hunting year. Good suggestion there, to have it do kind of by certain dates. That might be something we could do in the future. I would say currently the best way to kind of get around this is everything you make, whenever you make a markup, be it a track, a waypoint, a line, etc., put them in the folder that you want right away, so that, obviously for your stuff that you've already created, you've got to go back in and do that. But I've tried to become better at every time I mark a waypoint, I go and add it to the applicable folder. Like I said, I do mine by species. If you do yours by year, you could have, 2023, and just make sure you're doing that every time.
Yeah, the one thing that may help there, and again, if you've been hunting this area for a while and you have a lot of content already there, there's no real great way other than brute force to go back in and just create separate folders and add those things. But one thing you could do, if you're not really interested in seeing that content from the previous years, to Jack's point, if you'll say, start in 2023, create a 2023 folder, start putting everything in that folder at least, so the problem doesn't get any worse. And then we recently added a way for you to only show a specific folder's content on your map. So what you could do in that case is go to that area, hide all of your content, which you can do through the My Content tab, and then go to the specific folder that you've labeled 2023 and just say, only show me this folder on the map. And then all your stuff from all the previous years would be invisible. And the only thing that you would see would be your new content that you've added to your 2023 folder, or 2024, whenever you get started. So that would be one way for you to sort of catch up to having a ton of content that's sort of left on your map from previous years.
Yeah, I've been using those two toggles a lot this year. Only show this folder and then the hide on the map. That's been super slick for just cleaning up the map, especially once you have a few thousand waypoints.
Yeah.
Where wasn't I? Had one here and I lost it. Online, the tree covers can be identified by dragging the cursor over an area, but I haven't figured out how to do that on the phone. Can the tree cover labels be displayed? So I did show that a little earlier. Let me turn these back on. So you don't have a cursor on your phone, so you're not able to hover over it like you can on Web Map. But if you tap on the map when you have the tree cover layer turned on, one of those layers, you scroll down, it tells me right there, coniferous tree distribution, fir, hemlock, spruce. So you do have to tap it on mobile to be able to tell. Once you get some practice in, like it's kind of easy out in Western Montana. We really only have like a handful of different trees, at least that are common. But once you kind of do it more, I know that this brown, that's mostly going to be spruce trees, fir and spruce out in our area. You know, you get to different areas where it's more deciduous. I know it's going to be probably cottonwood and aspen for most of them out here. So it does get a little more intuitive where you don't have to tap it every time. But for the time being, you do need to tap, and then it'll tell you what trees are listed there. So good question, John.
And I'm pretty sure the same thing is true of the crop layer as well. So if you turn on crops, on web map, again, you can hover over those. It will tell you what crop was planted there last season. Obviously there's no hover on mobile, so you'd have to actually tap it. But again, once you kind of get used to this, you'll know, oh, well, and we tried to have a reasonable definition of our colors. So if you see yellow on the map for crops, that's corn, right? If you see a bright chartreuse green, I think that's alfalfa, right? And so we tried to be reasonably intelligent about how we assigned the colors, but obviously there's only so many colors and you're only going to remember so many of them inside your head, but you can always tap on something and yeah, wherever you are, there's a lot of corn. So
Minnesota, baby.
Minnesota, okay. So yeah, so that will be one way, and then after you use it for a while, you'll, at least for the important ones, you'll get a handle on which colors mean which.
Yeah, for most given areas, you're only going to have, you know, at most a handful of different crops that are commonly planted. A lot of the country, it's going to look like this. It's going to be corn and soybeans across a lot of the Midwest. So once you do it a little bit, it kind of becomes second nature.
And most of those rotate, right? So
Yep.
Last year's soybeans will be this year's corn. This year's corn will be, whichever. Well,
Usually corn,
last year's
soybean,
corn, last year's corn is this year's soybeans. You know, last year's soybeans is this year's corn. So you can sort of keep some of that stuff in mind as you look at the crop layers as well.
Nicole asked the first thing I'm going to cook with my elk. I already cooked a roast.
Nice.
Seared it in a cast iron skillet. This is my favorite way to cook like backstrap or roast. Salt and pepper, sear it in the cast iron, throw that in the oven with the thermometer till it reaches about 120, pull it out, let it rest, slice it up thin, delicious.
I am a Traeger fan, so I'm gonna do the same except in the opposite order. Smoke it 225 till an internal temperature of 120-ish. Sear it in a cast iron skillet with a little bit of butter. It's good.
We had a few questions on Canada as far as what data you can expect to see there. So Canada is a whole other ball of wax from the US with a whole different set of laws regarding property ownership data. So for most provinces, I believe, and territories, we have property boundaries. Not all, not everywhere, but we have the boundaries for most of Canada. We don't have the names. It's just a different set of like privacy laws in Canada than we have here in the US. So I don't know if we'll be able to get those in the future or not. Right now, we don't have them. We've got all the crown land and the other, you know, public types of land up there, as well as boundaries. We are, you know, we're still kind of new in Canada, so we're always looking to add more data and looking to add more information there. So if and when more property ownership information becomes available, we'll be sure to include it in there. Peter had asked, in his area in Southeast Ontario, he doesn't have property lines. He's wondering if he can draw lines on the map for property boundaries. Yes, you can. If you know where a boundary is, I'm just gonna, let me clear my map up here. Let me turn some of these layers off so you can see more easily. I'm just gonna move to an area that's national forest, so it's all one color. But let's just pretend there was a property, a private parcel in here. Just, you know, stick with me on this. Couple ways you can do it. What I would probably do is use the area shape tool if I just wanted to highlight one property. So I'm going to go in, hit the area shape tool, and then you can see I have this crosshair on my map. I'm gonna go to, let's just say it's kind of a rectangular shaped parcel. Probably helps if I zoom in a little bit. I'm gonna drop a point. Drop a point. So that's pretty close to a rectangle there. So then I can save that. You could also use the line distance tool if you just wanted to draw a line, basically the same process. If you're actually at the property, if you want to be most exact, if you're able to walk the property, I mean, you could use a tracker to walk the entire boundary of the property. Obviously, if it's a big property, it might be a little more difficult. You could also go to, let's say it is just a square property. You could go to those four corners and mark waypoints there using that mark my location tool, and then draw the line between them. So there's a couple different ways you can do that. It's going to depend on terrain, going to depend on how big the property is. But for an area of Canada, we're working to get the lines, so hopefully we can get them nationwide soon. For right now, that's probably what I would do to get around that.
And as a bit of a side, since you have the screen pulled up, we've also gotten some questions about how to measure the area of something in acres. And so one of the things you'll notice is once Jack drew that rectangle, in the card for that shape is the number of acres that are included inside that area shape. So if you're, this is not obviously specific to Canada, but if you're in the South and you need to put in a food plot, mark out your food plot shape using this tool. It'll tell you how much seed you need, a bunch of other things about that specific shape. If you didn't know that before, that'd be a good way to have your shapes marked on the map, since you have that pulled up.
Let's see, we've getting a bunch of questions in here. My Bushnell trail camera app has an onX feature. What does it do that simply marking my cameras as waypoints don't do? This is brand new for us. So we are working on integrations with different trail camera companies. So where that is going is you'll be able to, so let me show, for example, here on my map, I'm just going to move away. You see, I have this trail camera icon there. So what I can do is instead of marking a waypoint, I can add a trail camera specific marker to my map. So this would work for, let's say I just have a regular trail camera, let's say a non-cellular SD card camera out there. I'm going to name it. It's Bushnell camera. I can go to brand. Don't know the model off the top of my head. It's got 8 batteries and a 16 gigabyte SD card. I hit next. This camera is in the field. Location name, test for right now. I can mark what direction it faces. Let's say it's facing north. So that's something you can do right now on mobile is mark those waypoints. If you don't have it showing on your side yet, you may need to update your app. We're kind of rolling this out as we speak, right?
Yeah, I mean, this is brand new. I think we've been working with Bushnell for quite some time now. All the capabilities that Jack just demoed are of course possible. If it's an SD camera, you can pull that card and you can upload all those images into onX and be associated with this specific camera in this specific location. And we will keep track of that for you over time. If you move that camera around, you'll be able to go back in time, see which pictures are associated with which location of that camera. But in Bushnell's update, I think today or maybe yesterday, so this is brand new, you now have the option to connect your cellular Bushnell camera directly to onX so that as images come in, they will flow directly to this trail camera waypoint that Jack has dropped on his map. You would be able to see real-time images from your Bushnell camera inside onX. So now all the information that you need to understand your hunting area can be seen directly within our app, or obviously on the website as well. So again, Jack said we're working with a number of different providers on this capability. There'll be more coming soon. And once we are able to get some of this stuff out, it opens up a lot of cool possibilities for analysis of that data, prediction models, other sorts of things. So keep on the lookout for some of that stuff coming in the near future.
Laura asks, how should I add a waypoint onX doesn't offer, like marking where cell service is? So what I do, if I want to mark something that we don't have a specific waypoint for, what I'm going to do is so I guess I should explain. Another way to add a waypoint, what I did there was just, it's called a long press or a long hold on my map. You hold your finger down on an area for, I think it's 2 seconds. It'll put a waypoint there. So that's what I just did there. Not really pertinent to this question. What I will do a lot of times is I will pick another waypoint and just like assign a meaning to it different than what we have labeled here. So one I commonly use is this point of interest. I've used that to mark, where I have cell service. You could use it to mark where you don't have cell service. That's not something I would ever use really for hunting specific purposes. Like for a rub, a wallow, any kind of game sign or game sighting, I'm going to use that waypoint. So I use the point of interest for something like that. You could also use, where's the other one here I'm looking at? The hazard one. It can kind of be, you can kind of make it whatever meaning you want it to be. So if you want to mark, these are areas where I have cell service, you can mark it one, areas where I don't have cell service. And again, it may be labeled something in onX. But if you just say, hey, I know every time I see that hazard waypoint, that's where I mark where I don't have cell service. Then after a while, it's just going to become second nature to you. So that's what I would do, is just, we are, consistently, we're looking for new waypoints, and we add a few. It seems like every year or a couple of years, we update some of these. So definitely, let us know. Well, you did just let us know, but if you have other ones you want to see, you can always email us, help@onxmaps.com. That's our customer support email. And I'll just give a bigger plug for those folks. Any questions you have, whether you have a problem, something you think might be a bug, you have issues with your account, you need to change your credit card information, or you need to change a password, help@onxmaps.com. They will answer you, and they strive to answer everybody within a day. So if you email today, you're going to most likely get an answer before, 5 p.m. Mountain Time tonight. If you email us after our regular business hours, you can expect a response the next day. So we kind of pride ourselves in getting back to people in short order. So any suggestions you have, if you need education on something or any help, email them. Happy to help you there.
Yeah, one of the issues with adding more waypoint types, as Jack mentioned, and pull that thing back up again. One thing that people that may be not as discoverable as you think, we've recently added the search bar at the top of that type screen. So now you can type the first few characters of any of the waypoint types that you may be looking for, and it will filter down the list and show you just those waypoints that match those first characters. That's fairly new in the app. You may not know about that. So we already have quite a long list of waypoint types to choose from. You can search and narrow down your selection pretty quickly. And now that we have that in there, it does open up the possibility of adding even more types, because now it'll be easier to find them. I was a little worried before that we were getting way too long a list, and it just would take people way too long to scroll through a whole list of stuff to be able to find the one they want. And we were hesitant to add any new ones. And so now that we have this search feature in there, and we're thinking about some other ways that we can make this easier for you as well, you can look hopefully soon on a bunch of new waypoint types that we want to add. We have a whole long spreadsheet of waypoint types that customers have asked for in the past. So we're going to get to that list here shortly, now that we have this this search feature.
Let's see, what time are we at? I'm going to drop the giveaway link here in the chat. So we're giving away some onX t-shirts. So go to that website there. We'll have that link open for the next few hours. It'll close at 3 p.m. Mountain Time, so about 3 hours from now. So get entered in there. We just ask for your name, your email, your shipping address so that we can get those shipped out. I'll send an email to all the winners either this afternoon or early tomorrow, and then we'll get that sent out to you. If you're watching this on YouTube after, midday, September 21st, it's no longer open to you. I'm sorry, but we do these giveaways for just about all of our master classes. So tune into a future one. I do want to also give a quick plug to our buddy Sam Soholt. We have an upcoming masterclass with him next week talking about conservation funding, specifically the duck stamp. He has a pretty sweet project going on right now called the Duck Ruck, where he is trying to raise $100,000 to buy duck stamps. And he's about halfway there. He recently completed a 100-mile ruck through the prairie pothole region in North and South Dakota, kind of the duck factory, at least in that part of the United States. A lot of breeding ducks there. So the duck stamp, if you're a duck hunter, you already know, but it's $25, and by law, 98% of all of that funding has to go to acquiring habitat and habitat restoration projects, things like that, mostly through U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service administers that. So I'm also going to drop a link in the chat. If you want to go donate to Sam and to his efforts there at the Duck Ruck, he's giving away a bunch of prizes and stuff. Really cool project. We work with Sam, super good guy. I just wanted to mention that and get some more of the word out there. Let's see, we got time for a few more questions. Somebody said, please send the link again. All right. So here is the giveaway link again in the chat. Robert asks, can you change the color of boundary lines for designated hunt zones? Right now, you can't. Those are set on our side. So the hunt units are kind of that bright green color. If you do we do hear from people that sometimes the boundaries, private lands is what we hear about the most, that they're difficult to see if you're colorblind or have, some issues like that. Most phones, I know Apple phones have it. I believe Android phones as well. They have a colorblind setting where you can go into your settings. I think in the iPhones, it's under accessibility. And you can go in and kind of select, and they have different settings for different types of color blindness, whether you're red, green, or something else. Some people have found that useful. So that's what I would recommend right now. If you're having a hard time seeing those because of an eye issue, check out those different colorblind settings. But that's a good suggestion as well, that maybe we could build some different color modes into the app. So we'll definitely keep that in mind.
Yeah, one other thing there, if it is a piece of private property and you tap on that property, or if you're on web, you click on it, you can add that property to a folder. And so if you can find a piece of private land.
I'm just going to pick a random one.
So you can add that property to a folder. So you pick any sort of random folder. Now the outline of that specific property will be a more bold color red than we would typically show. So that might help you a little bit. The other thing I do, not because I'm colorblind, but because I'm old and I have trouble seeing the lines just like you do, I'll draw outlines using the line tool around a specific area that I'm interested in hunting, whether it's a hunt unit or maybe like one of these little squares of public land that you can see. I'll draw lines around those and color those lines a brighter color that shows up better for me. And so that's also an option. But if it's a piece of private property, create a folder and then add that property to a folder, and you can find it in that folder all the time, but also B, it will show it in a more bold outline on the map.
Teresa asked, does onX offer gift cards that I can give to a hunting partner so I can share waypoints, etc. with them? Yes, so we do have gift cards on our website. You can go to our merch shop there, which we just added a bunch of new hats and shirts that are pretty sweet. But you can buy gift cards there. Those things never expire, so it's just got a code in there that the recipient enters on our website. But I do want to mention, even if somebody doesn't have onX, you can still share a waypoint with them. So if you have, a loved one, a significant other, a hunting buddy, whatever, and you want to share a waypoint with them, a lot of people do this just for safety purposes of saying, hey, here's where I'm planning to hike in, so that heaven forbid, should something happen, they know where to start looking for you if you don't come out or they don't hear from you. You don't have to have onX to get that. Most people share it via a text message. I can give you an example, kind of. This is a tablet that doesn't have, a phone plan connected to it. But if I tap a waypoint and hit share, and then I'd hit share item, it'll give me an option. I can share via email. Here it gives me the options. Doesn't have text because it's not a phone. Yours will say text on your phone. You can text that to a parent, child, whoever. And if they don't have onX, when they click on that link, it'll prompt them to download the app and start a free trial. So they don't have to have a paid membership to receive that. I think they are limited to, is it 25?
Something like that.
Like 25 markups total on a basic unpaid membership. So definitely do buy them a gift card, and get them set up. But if that's, no pun intended, not in the cards for you, you can still share some waypoints for them. Like we said, it's good for safety purposes and things like that. It's a good question. Yeah, Teresa wrote back, thanks. I think they need the app. I agree.
We agree.
Great Christmas and birthday gifts. Get those gift cards out to people. KCS, how do I find the recording or other master classes? So that's a good one as we kind of start to wrap up here. All of our master classes get uploaded to the onX Hunt YouTube channel. We have a playlist there titled Master Classes. So we've been doing these since the spring of 22. So we've got quite the backlog of classes. Most of them are an hour long. So we have our onX Hunt 101s. So if you're looking for kind of a basic tutorial, how to use the basic features of the app, we just did one about a week ago. That one went like an hour 45 because there's so much stuff. We do those monthly. So if you do want to join a future one, you can sign up for those on our website. The best way to find that is to Google onX Hunt Masterclasses. We should have a sign up page, should be the first option on Google or one of the first ones. And then all the old ones get put on YouTube. Sometimes it takes us a day or two to get them uploaded. But when you sign up for a class, we also send you an email 24 hours later. So about this time tomorrow, you'll all be getting an email with the YouTube link as well. So you can, if you want to just wait for that email, you can find it that way as well.
Does Zoom capture the chat in the recording?
It's not available on the YouTube.
For us later, is it?
I think we can pull some of it. Yep.
Then here's what I would ask. If you're listening right now, and if you would find it useful to be able to access things like this masterclass or a specific masterclass on turkey hunting or an upland bird vest dump, which is one of the ones we did a couple weeks ago, or an elk calling one, which we did a few weeks ago. If you would find that feature useful inside your app, rather than having to go try to navigate YouTube and find that, type yes in the chat. If it wouldn't be useful to you and you'd rather just use your YouTube app, type no. Just curious to see, that's something that we've thought a lot about, is how might we help either newer hunters or people who are just learning in specific areas get more out of the app itself than just a tool to navigate or drop waypoints or whatever. So it's something we're actively thinking about. And so if you could just take 2 seconds and type yes or no, I'd really appreciate it.
Awesome. See a bunch of yeses coming in there.
Cool. Good.
I think we'll do just a couple more questions. There's a bunch here we didn't get to. This one from Brett. I seem to have a sharing feature issue with some cell phone carriers. Why is that? Had difficulty sharing waypoints with some hunting buddies. I know we've had issues with T-Mobile.
We have.
at least with T-Mobile, I believe our links were getting flagged as like spam and they weren't getting sent. I thought I heard we were doing an update to remedy that.
We're gonna change the way that we create and share those saved links. I'm not sure that's out on all platforms yet, but it is definitely something we are working on. We've had this issue with T-Mobile in the past, and then we worked with them. They updated their systems and things started working again. And then all of a sudden they didn't. And so there's clearly something going on there that we don't have a whole lot of control over. So we're going to try to, we are in the process of changing how we package those links so that they don't get flagged and you'll receive them. So hopefully we have that problem worked out for you very soon.
And while we work that out, if you're trying to do that right now and running into issues, you can share via other methods. You can email links. You can share them over like Facebook. There's a bunch of different methods you can use to share. So you might try that. Worst comes to worst, what I've done, I've never run into this issue personally, to be honest. But if I were to, what you can do if you just really need to get somebody to a location, you can tap on the map and copy coordinates and just copy and paste those coordinates to somebody. Like if you tap on a waypoint, it'll give you the coordinates, and you can share those with somebody just in a text, and then they can do that search that we did earlier. That would be a workaround. Like we said, should be a non-issue here pretty soon as we work through kind of reconfiguring everything. But for right now, I would probably first do an email or, a Facebook message or something if you have that. But like I said, should be a non-issue here moving forward. Let's see. I think we kind of answered most of the big topic questions there. Let's see if we can find one more one's been answered. So we did have a couple questions on the Hunt app and the Off-Road app. If you could see them both in one app, what the differences are if I want to change. So Hunt and Off-Road, and we have Backcountry, our third app. They are all separate apps. There's not one like master app or a way to combine them all into one app. I think that would kind of get a little unwieldy. There'd be a lot of information in there. So that's part of the reason why they're broken out. Somebody had asked earlier, if I want to switch from Hunt to Off-Road, what do I do? I would shoot us an email or you can give us a call. That would be the best way. Our customer support team will kind of get your subscription transferred over from Hunt to Off-Road, get everything taken care of with billings, that you're not getting any unexpected charges for the app you don't want. They'll get you set up on the new one. So help@onxmaps.com. That's the best way if you want to switch from Hunt to Off-Road or Off-Road to Hunt or anything like that.
You want to show the MVUM layer?
Yeah, we can show. So yeah, why don't you explain while I pull this up?
Well, you're already sharing your screen, right?
I am not, but I will be soon.
Okay. So within the Hunt app itself, if you go under the layers, and Jack will pull this up here in a second. If you click on the layers button in the bottom left corner, you'll see our layer groupings. If you scroll down to roads, trails,
trails, and rec.
Roads, trails, and rec. There's an MVUM layer in there that you can see on the screen. If you flip that on, now you'll see we show a bunch of purple. You'll see all the purple lines show up on your map when Jack flips that on. Those are going to represent the same motor vehicle roads and trails that you would see in off-road. The difference will be that in off-road, you're going to get much more information about those roads itself. You'll get what we call rich content. So you'll get photos, you'll get trail reports, you'll get a bunch of other information that we don't show in the Hunt app itself. But if you just want to know where the roads are, we'll show in here when they're open, when they're closed, what type of vehicle that road is appropriate for in terms of width. And all this information comes from the Forest Service. And so that will help a little bit. But obviously, if you're really serious off-roading, you're going to want the rich content, the trail reports, trails that are specific for snowmobiles or side-by-sides or whatever sort of vehicle you have. And so you might want to think about, as the last question mentioned, changing over, but you can see some of this information in Hunt even today.
Yeah, so all the trails, like Jeff said, they're there no matter what. Off-road does give you a little bit more information, but if you're just looking for trails, you know, you want to ride on or something, Hunt maybe what you need anyway. So definitely take a look at that. You still decide you want to change, like we said. Give our customer support team an email or give them a call, and they'll be happy to help. So I threw the giveaway link in the chat one more time. Go ahead and get entered there. It's about 75 people on here still, so we're giving away 10 t-shirts, so pretty good odds there. Like I said, I'll email the winners later today, early tomorrow, and get those shirts sent out. And want to give one more plug. If you like these master classes, let us know. We do have a bunch of upcoming classes on our website. Again, easiest way to get there is do a Google or a Bing or whatever search for onX Hunt Master Classes. We've got the one with Sam Solholt coming up. We've got some whitetail specific ones coming up. We've got more office hours. We try to do these office hours about every 2 weeks throughout hunting season at least. We've got another 101, your kind of in-depth tutorial coming up in October. So keep an eye out for those and get signed up for any ones that you find interesting. And with that, I think we have another meeting we have to go to.
Probably, yes.
Want to thank everybody again and hope to see you on the next one.